Welcome to Health 247, where every story, every lesson, and every breath reminds us that growing older doesn't mean fading away. It means living smarter, stronger, and truer to yourself. If you're on a journey to protect your health, sharpen your mind, and live with heart, you're in the right place. Let's walk this path together, with honesty, warmth, and the wisdom only time can give. Now, let's begin. I spent the first half of my life trying to please everyone. And I almost lost myself in the process. Maybe you've been there too. Maybe you've said yes when you wanted to say no. You agreed to things just to keep the peace. You stayed silent to avoid disappointing someone. You gave, and gave, and gave, not realizing how much it cost you inside. For many of us, especially in our generation, we were taught to be kind, to be generous, to serve our families, our friends, our communities. But somewhere along the way, that kindness became a burden. We forgot that we, too, are allowed to rest. That we are allowed to say no. That our worth is not measured by how much we sacrifice for others. I didn't learn this overnight. It took me 5 decades to see that trying to please everyone was quietly wearing me down. It took gray hair, heartaches, and many quiet nights of reflection to finally understand. You don't have to be everything for everyone. You just need to be true to you. And that is where healing begins. Stay with me. I want to share this story with you, because it might be the message your heart has been waiting to hear. Why do we always try to please others? I thought being kind meant being silent. I thought being good meant saying yes, even when it hurt. Maybe you've believed the same, for decades. Because we were raised to believe that being good means making others happy. From a very young age, many of us were taught a quiet lesson, not through words, but through how people reacted when we acted a certain way. If we smiled, stayed quiet, helped out, said yes when asked, we were praised. If we disagreed, said no, or showed our feelings too strongly, we were told we were difficult. Or selfish. So we learned. We learned that approval comes when we shrink ourselves. That love feels conditional, only given when we behave the way others want us to. This belief burrowed deep into our bones. And for many of us, especially those raised in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, kindness was tied to obedience. We weren't taught to ask, "What do I need?" We were trained to ask, "What do they need from me, and how fast can I give it?" I'm a good daughter because I never complain. I'm a good husband because I work hard and never ask for help. I'm a good friend because I always show up, even when I'm falling apart inside. But is that kindness? Or is that self-erasure? Because we fear rejection, criticism, or losing love. At the heart of people-pleasing is fear. Fear of disappointing someone we care about. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear that if we say no, they might love us a little less, or worse, walk away. This fear isn't irrational, it's emotional memory. Maybe you were once made to feel like you weren't enough. Maybe someone reacted with coldness when you said what you really felt. Maybe you were taught that conflict equals failure, that peace is always better than honesty. So you chose the path of least resistance, pleasing others, no matter the cost. But what we forget is that people who truly love us don't demand our perfection. They want our truth. They want our real yes. And they'll respect our honest no. When you say yes to everyone else, make sure you're not saying no to yourself. And yet, so many of us do it. Quietly. Daily. Because our generation was built on sacrifice, not self-care. This is where it hits home, especially for older adults. You didn't grow up in an era that talked about boundaries. There were no conversations about emotional needs, burnout, or putting yourself first. No. You were raised with phrases like, "Don't be selfish. Think of others before yourself. A real man doesn't complain. A good woman sacrifices for her family." You carried these words for decades. And they became your identity. You wore sacrifice like a badge of honor, even when it drained you. But somewhere along the way, you may have forgotten that you're human. Not a machine. Not a role. Not just a caregiver, a spouse, a grandparent. You have needs, too. Desires. Dreams. Limits. And now, perhaps for the first time in your life, you're allowed to ask, "What do I want? What do I need?" You've given so much. Maybe it's time to give a little back, to yourself. Let this truth settle in. You don't need to earn love by disappearing. You don't need to exhaust yourself to be worthy. You don't need to say yes to everyone just to feel needed. Because real peace doesn't come from being liked by everyone. It comes from liking yourself enough to be honest. The price we pay for trying to please everyone. I didn't even recognize myself anymore. I was everyone's helper, everyone's comfort, everyone's support. But I forgot how to simply be me. We lose our personal boundaries, and with it, our sense of self. When your life revolves around pleasing others, your personal boundaries slowly dissolve. You say yes out of habit, not choice. You smile even when you're tired. You listen, care, give, until you can't remember the last time someone asked you, "How are you really doing?" Over time, you forget what you enjoy. You don't know what rest feels like. You stop asking what brings you peace, because you're always thinking about everyone else's needs. That's what happens when boundaries blur. And the scary part? You may not even realize it's happening. Until one day, you wake up and feel like a stranger to yourself. I was always there for them. But I wasn't there for me. You become mentally and emotionally exhausted from pretending all the time. People think being a people pleaser is about being nice. But it's more than that. It's performance. You're constantly performing the role others expect. The strong one. The reliable one. The good parent, the good neighbor, the good friend. And it's exhausting. You smile when you're hurting. You say, "It's okay," when it's really not. You push yourself to show up, even when your body is asking for rest. This constant pretending takes a toll. It leads to quiet resentment, burnout, even depression, and yet, no one sees it. Because you've been so good at hiding it. It's like living with a mask on, and forgetting what your real face looks like. You deserve to breathe without performing. You deserve to be loved without pretending. You end up sacrificing what truly matters to you. Sometimes, in trying to please everyone else, we abandon what matters most. Maybe you skipped your doctor's appointment because someone needed a ride. Maybe you gave up your hobby to babysit every week, even when no one really asked you to. Maybe you stayed silent when someone crossed a line, because you didn't want to cause trouble. At first, it feels noble, generous, even loving. But slowly, piece by piece, you trade away your time, your energy, your peace. Until you're left holding a life that looks full, but feels empty. I gave so much of myself away that I forgot to save any of me. Here's a truth that may be hard to hear. Not everyone will be upset if you stop overgiving. Some people won't even notice. And those who truly care will still love you when you finally choose you. So what is the real cost? It's not just time. It's not just energy. It's the quiet grief of living a life shaped by other people's expectations, instead of your own truth. When you constantly try to make everyone else happy, you risk living a life where you never truly are. But here's the good news. It's never too late to come home to yourself. To set a boundary. To say no to rest. To choose joy. Even now, even after 50, 60, 70 years, you can gently begin again. You've pleased enough people. Now, it's time to please your soul. Lesson at 50, happiness doesn't come from others' approval. I spent decades chasing everyone's approval. But peace came the day I stopped running. And sat down beside myself. The people who truly love you don't need you to perform. Let's say this gently, but clearly. If someone only accepts you when you agree with them, when you're helpful, when you say yes all the time, that's not love. That's convenience. Real love doesn't require masks. It welcomes your truth. Your quirks. Your soft spots. Your honest boundaries. The people who love you don't want the role you play. They want the real you. You don't need to twist yourself into knots to be enough. You already are. And anyone who makes you feel otherwise isn't seeing you, they're seeing a version of you that benefits them. But guess what? The people who truly care, your real tribe, they'll still be there when you finally say, I can't do this today. I need time for me. I'm choosing peace. Because love doesn't leave when you stop overgiving. Love stays when you start living honestly. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-respect. Somewhere along the line, we were taught that saying no means we don't care. That if we truly loved others, we'd never disappoint them. But here's the truth that took 50 years to learn. Boundaries don't push people away, they show them where we begin. Setting a boundary doesn't mean you love someone less. It means you love yourself enough to stop abandoning your needs. It means you understand that your time, your energy, your health, is finite. And you can't give it all away without breaking. Saying no isn't a rejection of others. It's an acceptance of your own limits. Every no to others is a yes to your peace, health, and truth. It took years, maybe even decades, to realize this simple truth. Not every request deserves your energy. Not every expectation is yours to carry. When you say no to things that drain you, you're saying yes to rest, to clarity, to spending time on what truly matters to you, your health, your family, your quiet mornings, your deep breaths. When you protect your energy, you make room for joy. Not the loud kind that looks good in photos, but the soft kind that feels like exhaling after a long day of pretending. I used to think saying yes made me kind. Now I know that saying no, when I need to, makes me whole. So here's the lesson, and the invitation. You don't have to earn your worth. You don't need to be everything to everyone. You don't need to shrink, smile, and overextend to feel valuable. You're allowed to disappoint someone else. If it means you don't disappoint yourself. And maybe today, after a lifetime of pleasing others, you can try something new. Say yes to yourself. Say yes to rest. Say yes to being honest. Say yes to your limits. Say yes to the version of you that doesn't need permission to be real. Because at 50, 60, 70, you've earned that right. How to start living authentically, even in your 60s or 70s. You don't have to become someone new. You just have to return to the you that's always been there, quietly waiting. Start by listening to yourself, every single morning. For most of our lives, we wake up asking, what do I need to do for others today? We think about family, chores, phone calls, favors. But how often do we pause, truly pause, and ask, what do I want today? What does my soul need? It could be something simple. A quiet walk. A phone call with someone you miss. A nap in the sun. A book you never finished. You don't have to overhaul your life overnight. You just have to begin by listening inward, like checking in with an old friend. That old friend is you. Your desires aren't selfish. They're signals from the self you've long ignored. Begin with small acts of truth, and let them grow. You don't have to shout no from the rooftops. You can begin gently. Say, not today, when you feel tired. Say, I'll think about it, instead of instantly agreeing. Take a walk when others expect you to stay. Choose the quiet evening over a noisy obligation. Bit by bit, you'll feel your power returning. Not power over others, but power with yourself. Every small no to the world becomes a bigger yes to your truth. These aren't rebellious acts. They're acts of remembrance, a remembering of who you are underneath the roles. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Learn to sit with disagreement, without blaming yourself. Here's something no one tells you. When you start living more truthfully, some people won't like it. They may push back. They may guilt you. They may say, but you always used to. Or, you've changed. And they're right, you have changed. You're choosing to live by inner peace, not outer approval. That discomfort, when someone frowns, or pulls away, it's part of the process. But it won't break you. You can survive not being liked. You'll thrive by being true. Disagreement is not danger. Discomfort is not failure. It's just the sound of your freedom unfolding. And no, it's not always easy. But it gets easier each time you remind yourself. I'm not responsible for their feelings, only for my own truth. Surround yourself with kindred spirits, who lift you up, not wear you down. One of the most powerful shifts at this stage of life is realizing you can choose your circle. Find people who value honesty over appearances. Who laugh with you, not at you. Who celebrate your no as much as your yes. It could be a meditation group. A few neighbors who love simplicity. A book club that feeds your mind and heart. Or even an online community where you feel seen. These are the people who remind you. You're not alone. You're not strange. You're brave, for choosing truth over approval. When your soul is tired, don't look for more things to do. Look for people who feel like peace. Even one friend who understands the journey of becoming yourself, that's enough to help you stay steady. It's never too late to begin. Some people don't start living honestly until 60, 70, or even later. And guess what? That's still beautiful. Because now is always the right time to begin again. You've lived for decades caring, giving, adjusting, sacrificing. And that's noble. But maybe now, it's time to also live for joy. For alignment. For inner quiet. For the feeling of waking up and knowing. Today, I get to be me. You've spent your whole life being strong for others. Now it's time to be gentle with yourself. Don't wait for permission to rest. Don't apologize for choosing peace. You've earned the right to say no without guilt, and yes to what makes you feel alive. The world doesn't need a perfect version of you, it needs the real you. And the people who matter. They'll love you more when you stop pretending. So today, start small, say what you really feel. Take a little more space. Rest a little longer. You've spent decades showing up for everyone else. Now it's your turn to show up for you. It took me 50 years to realize this. You don't have to live your life trying to please everyone. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for others is to finally be honest with yourself. When you live truthfully, you no longer carry the heavy mask of approval. You don't chase love, because real love doesn't ask you to abandon who you are. And here's the beautiful truth. Even if you're 60, 70, or 80, it's not too late. It's never too late to start living a life that aligns with your deepest values. A life that feels lighter, more peaceful, more you. So today, just pause for a moment. Ask yourself, gently, what do I truly need? And then, step by step, start living in a way that honors your truth, your peace, and your worth. You've earned that right. Now, you can begin.